My name is Chaz Fuda. I am a psychologist from Australia, and today I'm going to talk about whether your anxiety is fixable or whether you are permanently cooked. Now, let me start off by giving you a new way to think about your anxiety. So, anxiety is literally built into you. It is a regular human emotion. It is sourced primarily from a part of the brain called the amygdala, which is a little P right in the center of the brain. So, when you're thinking about your anxiety, you basically need to see it as a regular human emotion that you need for your own survival. To say, is there a way to fix my anxiety, is kind of like saying, is there a way to fix my lungs from breathing? You literally need oxygen into your lungs, much like you need anxiety to keep you alive. The problem is when it spikes uncontrollably, consistently, to the point where it interferes with your daily life. This is the key idea here, is it's normal to get a little bit anxious. And if you didn't get anxious, I would be a little concerned. But it's abnormal, I suppose you could say, when it is continuous to the point where you cannot function or be the kind of person that you want to be. Interact with the world in a way in which you want to, because that feeling keeps getting ramped up and the thoughts keep flying off the rails and you don't know what to do. Does it feel like it's permanent? Now, in order to continue answering this question of how to tell if your anxiety is permanently cooked, is also you need to start seeing it in terms of the things that are maintaining your anxiety. See, human beings are capable of learning. You can learn how to manage your anxiety, but the thing is you need to identify which of the common factors are the ones that are making it so that your anxiety stays the same, so that it doesn't seem to be improving. And I'm going to go through a few of them today with examples. Perhaps the most common thing that keeps anxiety going is this lovely thing called avoidance. Probably already heard of it, maybe not. Let me explain. Avoidance is pretty much what it sounds like. You avoid the thing that scares you the most. Now, the reason why this maintains anxiety beyond controllability is that it prevents you from learning that you can actually cope with the situations that you fear the most. So, have you ever experienced a time when you did something and it turned out to not be as bad as it initially seemed? If so, that's you countering avoidance by confronting the feared situation and learning, hey, it wasn't so bad after all. The trick with countering avoidance is to confront your feared situation in small steps. You wouldn't go straight to step 10 or the maximum difficulty in a video game or a life circumstance, right? You would want to slowly build up to it so that you can learn the skills that you need to cope, to get along the track and the journey of learning. So let's say that your feared situation is public speaking. Generally speaking, this is actually a pretty scary thing for most people, but let's just give you an example of how to work up to it. First, you might start with just performing to your cat or dog. And then you might start performing to a girlfriend or boyfriend or family members. And then you might perform to a small group of friends, right? And you build yourself up so that when you've reached the final boss fight, which is performing to a crowd of people or in a hall, then you've built the skills up as you needed along the way so that you can cope with the thing that you feared the most, to learn that it probably won't be so bad after all, and maybe, heck, you might even enjoy it. Closely linked to avoidance is this other thing called reassurance seeking. So I just want to quickly touch on this. Let's say that the person confronts their fear, but they're only able to do so when other people, a trusted loved one, is continuously giving them reassurance or telling them, you've got this, you'll be okay. Now, initially this might seem good because it gives you a little bit of a boost to be able to get where you want to be, right? The thing is ideally you would want to get there off of your own back, off of your own skill set, right? If you're getting people to reassure you, then ultimately you don't necessarily learn to cope with the situation that you fear the most. And here's the trick. If you can cope with the situation that you fear the most with a little bit of reassurance, that means that you can cope with it. Like literally, if you need a bit of someone telling you you got this, and then you go off and do the thing, well, that means that you can do the thing, and the only problem was a bit of confidence. You can literally confront your fear. Does that make sense? The next factor that maintains anxiety, and this is actually more of a recent discovery, and it turns out to be quite key, is issues with uncertainty or fear of the unknown. So people, generally speaking, don't like unknown situations, but most people can sort of cope with it by confronting it straight away. But for those that are highly anxious, they might avoid it because they start jumping into a bunch of what if scenarios. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if I can't do this? What if this? What if that? Which is all hovering around this idea of issues with uncertainty. So this maintains your anxiety and also feeds into avoidance, generally speaking. Now, here's the thing about unknowns. Something that is unknown literally is just something that is unknown. Something being unknown does not mean that it is bad or good. It just means that you literally do not know what's going to happen next. And then, of course, what happens is people will fill in the blanks in their mind. They will create the scenarios in their head to prepare themselves for the worst case scenario. But you got to remind yourself that an unknown is literally just an unknown. You don't know what's going to happen next. It could go positively. It could go really well. It could go funny. It could start off well, go bad, ebb and flow, and come back to being boring. Unknowns aren't always just this perpetual negative worst case scenario thing for the entirety of the situation. That's just your brain catastrophizing, more on that in a second, and blowing things out of proportion to what they actually are. The next thing that maintains anxiety a bunch is this lovely thing called the spotlight effect. So what this means is a person that's highly anxious will think that everybody is looking at them, or they might think that everybody can see all of the awkward things on their body. For example, elevated heart rate, stuttering, sweaty palms, or whatnot, right? Now, spoiler alert, generally speaking, people actually aren't noticing these things as much as you think they are. I can give you an example. When you're talking to people, how much do you notice their elevated heart rate? And the answer is you literally can't see their elevated heart rate because you cannot see their heart. Your heart is here on the inside. There's literally no way to see things like elevated heart rate or sweaty armpits or sweaty palms because you literally need to look at them, and you can't see sweat from just when people have their arms down and their fists clenched like this. You literally can't see it, right? So if you can't see other people's elevated heart rates and other anxiety features, then doesn't that mean that that's the same for them and they can't see your elevated heart rate and anxiety features? The next one that maintains anxiety a bunch is excessive self-monitoring. So you might be in a social situation and you are going to be continuously monitoring yourself. You can almost imagine it like a camera here watching you from the third person to make sure that you're not being too awkward or too silly, or that you're maintaining enough eye contact, or whatever it is that you continuously self-monitor. Now, the problem with self-monitoring is that, of course, not only is it going to distract you and bring you out of the social situation and into this third person observer state, but all the things that you're self-monitoring about, you are assuming that other people care about or even notice. So for example, if you're continuously monitoring yourself thinking, oh, I better not be awkward, I better not be awkward, your definition of awkward might actually be a little bit different to the other people. You might define awkward as being quiet, whereas other people might define awkward as making a joke that doesn't land correctly. So the thing with self-monitoring is you got to really ask yourself, the things that you're continuously watching yourself for, are they the same things that other people actually care about? The next thing that maintains your anxiety a bunch is this thing called mind reading. You might not even realize that you're doing this. So the highly anxious person will assume other people's thoughts, feelings, behaviors, motivations, intentions, blah, 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 blah. So when you're out at a party, we just use an example. When you're out in a party, at a house party, you might walk into a room and you might look at someone, they might look at you, and your brain might immediately ping off, they hate me, they're judging me, they think I look weird. How can you literally know what people are thinking? How can you literally pull their thoughts out of their brain? I can give you an example of why this is a massive problem. If I was to say to you, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100. What number am I thinking of? And you don't know. You're going to guess. You're going to guess what number I'm thinking of. And that illustrates the point of the issue with mind reading in the socially anxious person, is you're assuming other people's thoughts. You're assuming that just because they looked at you in a certain way that they hate you or whatever. But you literally don't know what they're thinking, so how can you know? Could they be looking at you and thinking, damn, I like those shoes, what are those? Closely linked with this idea of mind reading is the tendency for the socially anxious person to replay social events in their head continuously. So you might exit from a social gathering, and on the drive back home, you might be thinking, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, that person thought I was weird, or blah, 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 blah. You're going to replay these events continuously in your mind. Once again, the problem with that is that you are injecting meaning into a memory, and you don't know what other people's perceptions were of that particular social context. So you're going to be replaying it thinking, oh, that I shouldn't have said that. Oh, that was really awkward. That person will never talk to me again. How do you know what the other people are thinking? How do you know that they thought that you were awkward? You don't, right? And that is really critical, that because a memory you can continuously rewrite in your mind. You can add as much meaning as you want to, regardless of any law or anything stopping you from doing so. But just because you add that meaning, it doesn't mean that that's actually what happened. It might have felt that way, but it doesn't mean that's actually what happened. Which leads me on to the last thing that maintains your anxiety, which I want to cover, is the idea of treating feelings as facts. So here's something else that's useful that maintains people's anxiety, which you probably didn't know about. When you feel anxious, you literally feel anxious, right? You actually have this feeling that ramps up, which can make it seem like the thing that you're scared about the most is more legitimate than it actually is. So what's useful here is to separate the thing that you're thinking about from the feeling as much as possible. I guess you could simplify it as sometimes feelings can lie, or sometimes feelings can catastrophize and blow things out of proportion more badly than they actually are. This is really key to separate yourself from your feelings at times to see a situation with a bit more objective clarity. So I'm going to wrap up the video. What I've done is I've covered a bunch of maintaining factors that help you understand that anxiety is not something that you cure or fix, so to speak, is built into you. It's about identifying the common factors that make it so that your anxiety stays the same, and then lowering them, bringing them back down so that you can interact with the world in a way in which you want to. That's the end of this video. I'm a psychologist. Thank you for watching and subscribe for more.